views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. Well, on today's show, we continue our series evaluating the various candidates for civil court of the city of New York. We give each candidate almost 13 minutes to tell you, the viewer, why you should elect them as a judge. Our two guests today are Angel Cruz and John Rodriguez, both extremely qualified, but tonight you get to judge. So stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. Okay, we're back here at today's verdict, and we're continuing our series in terms of the civil court elections, which are coming up very quickly. And today we have with us somebody who I know personally, Angel Cruz. Angel, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Dave. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. It really is to have you on here. And one of the reasons is your story is so inspiring in terms of your background and how you even got to the point where you're now running. So if you could let the viewers know just a little bit about, what it was like, growing up, some of the issues that you got involved with, and how you ended up sitting across from me virtually right now.
It's the story of the Bronx, right? So I was born in the Bronx when the Bronx was burning. And, our solution to poverty back then was decriminalization. And ultimately, as a young man, I got caught up in the criminal justice system. And only by the grace of God and this community that enabled me to return to our society and assume a position of trust. I had the bright idea that I would learn the law. I petitioned the judge, and I got back before a judge. And that judge ultimately bestowed me with grace. And it was that grace that transformed my life. And by virtue of that, that was over 30 years ago. Came home, raised a family, had the bright idea I was going to be a big lawyer, to stand in the New York courtrooms defending the innocent. And I realized that dream only because, the audacity of hope coupled with this community, the silent giants in our Bronx community that enabled me to proceed. And so it's with an enormous amount of honor and pride and humility that I'm able to return to our community and ask for their vote. A vote for Angel Cruz this election cycle is actually a vote for change. A vote for change, a vote for the idea that someone can reform their life, assume a position of trust. And I'm uniquely positioned because of my experience. The traditional trajectory to the bench is either through, you're a former prosecutor or you're a former legal aid attorney, but our Bronx County judiciary, I'm trying to diversify with the lived experience, one that I uniquely have. So, I do these programs in order to awaken our electorate, because it's not often that they have the opportunity for change, right? It's not often that there's a contested race for judge. And so we're trying to awaken as many people as possible that this, Democratic primary is very important. We're going to take back our borough president. We're going to take back the city council. We're going to take back our mayor's office. And by extension, we have the unique opportunity to redefine the relationship and how we, dispense justice here in Bronx County.
Let me ask you a question, Angel. What, in your opinion, makes a good judge? What makes somebody say he's going to be a good judge? What do you think that is?
So, it's interesting, right? So upon graduating law school, I had the benefit of getting hired by a Bronx Supreme Court judge as a court attorney. And I did that job for approximately 7 years before I went off to the borough president's office. And what makes a good judge is a judge that listens to the facts, a judge that, an election of a judge is an election of our ethos, of our community. And once that judge is elected, he takes those values with him into the courtroom to dispense justice one case at a time. And so the earmark of a good judge is the ability to listen, to allow the practitioners to make their claims, to take that evidence, to deliberate, and ultimately call it as you see it, as you know, our Creator has endowed us with the wisdom and our reading of the law. So it's a combination of your reading of that Constitution applied with what you know, what you experience as a lawyer, right? Because you can't be a judge unless you're a lawyer for at least 10 years. And I've had the benefit of being an attorney for over 17, and I've been criminal justice impacted for over 40. You know, my first contact with the criminal justice system was at 13 years old and in 1977. So it's with enormous pride that I come back to our community and ask for their vote.
You know, I remember, you know, way back when I was a court attorney for a few years, and I was in different places. I could have either been in landlord-tenant part, I could have been in the trial part, motion part, small claims part. Did you find, you know, your experience as a court attorney that you were able to really get a little bit of a taste of all areas of the law that will help you if you're elected?
Absolutely. So what's interesting is after I joined the Supreme Court Justice, I can't mention his name because he's still on the bench and the law doesn't allow me. But he's a giant in our legal community, and everyone that knows my history knows him. At any rate, I had the benefit of working with him at Supreme Court, and then he was elevated to the appellate term first department as the presiding justice. And at that, at 60 Center, we had the jurisdiction to preside, or he had the jurisdiction to preside. I only carried his water, right? So
I know the feeling.
Right. So we did criminal cases, civil cases, housing cases, commercial landlord tenant. It was the entire plethora of the civil court that we had the opportunity to study, preside over, and dispense justice. So I'm uniquely positioned for this particular civil court race.
Now, I know it's not up to you if you're elected as to where you're possibly placed on the criminal side, civil side. You don't need to tell me a preference, but do you feel you're qualified for both, and in what way? Like, how would you tell the viewers that?
Right. So, you know, my first obligation is to ensure ultimately that wherever the Court of Office Administration determines that I'm best suited, that I serve there with honor, distinction, and integrity, right? Because we're gonna be proud of the fact that I'm going to preside in Bronx Civil Court. Whether they send me in the criminal term, whether they send me to the family court, to the delinquency part, whether they leave me in the civil court, you know, this election cycle after the pandemic, whoever is elected needs to come to that bench, not with the idea that they're going to retire, but they need to come with at least 12 hours a day to dispense justice, because there's a tremendous amount of backlog. And so as a court attorney, I'm uniquely positioned, having done exactly that. When my judge went to the appellate term, he not only had the appellate term inventory, he had an Article 81 inventory, we were ex parte, we were mental hygiene part. So I had the benefit of being exposed to the entire breadth of Supreme Court. And I bring that knowledge with me. So I'm just looking forward to the opportunity.
You know, campaigning, you know, has its advantages and disadvantages. Have you enjoyed meeting different people through this process? I mean, you're out there. I see you in front of the courthouse, you know, right by my office. I see you. Have you enjoyed, you know, meeting people, shaking hands, saying hello to the community?
Absolutely. It's a wonderful thing to get the ebbs and flows of our community, and you hear, you know, what the real issues are. It affects us in a real substantial way. You know, I try to awaken the electorate about this election cycle, because other than last year, the last time there was a contested judicial race was over 20, 25 years ago. So our Democratic members, our Democratic parties are not accustomed to voting for judge. And so that's part of the process of getting the vote, right? Is awakening the electorate, moving them to understand that who's the judge matters, who sits in that courtroom to dispense justice one case at a time is an important obligation, and who sits there is a special role. So, my only hope is that when people come out this election cycle, they vote for Cruz for judge.
Well, let them understand in terms of the ballot and how it works, because this isn't ranked voting, is it? To explain to the viewers how the voting for a judge works in terms of the ballot.
So there are 5 people running for judge, and I tip my hat to all 5, including myself, because it takes a lot of gumption to run. It really does, especially when you're running against the tide, for lack of a better term. The electorate, when they vote, they're going to be confronted with oftentimes a long ballot. And the first ballot is going to be the mayor, the borough president, city offices, and that's all ranked choice voting. But when they turn the ballot over, they're going to have 5 names, but they can only elect 2. And if they choose 3, or they confuse this race with ranked choice voting, that's what is known as an overvote. And that overvote will disqualify your vote. So make sure you understand that voting for judge, you can only vote for 2. My hope and prayer is that you'll vote for Cruz, but whomever you vote for, it must only be 2.
We don't have too much time left, but I want you to maybe tell the viewers a little bit about, if you had to really sum up, you and becoming a judge, what would you sum up to them to let them understand why you're the one who should get one of those 2 spots?
No one on that Bronx judiciary has my lived experience. We have been in look, this race is more about promoting what is good. It's about ensuring that the road for redemption is bright for those who have been judicially impacted in a negative way and know that they can change their lives, rejoin our society, and assume a position of trust. What beautiful message that is. It's not for me, it's for my daughter, your daughter, their children, for them to know that we make mistakes. We're not all perfect. But if we have the love and support of our family and our community, and we can reclaim our courthouse and refashion it in a way that's consistent with our needs, what a beautiful story that is. So a vote for Cruz is a vote for transformative change that we can all believe in. Concrete examples of reformation are necessary today because there's so many people who are criminally justice impacted.
And by the way, when is election day?
Oh, June 22nd. Early voting starts June 12th, which is this Friday. And, again, tell your neighbors, tell your family, this election cycle will make a transformative change. And David, thank you. You've been a pillar of our community for so long. And this program, The Verdict, is one that we all follow. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Well, it's our pleasure. And listen, we wish you good luck. June 22nd, get out there and vote. Angel Cruz. Listen, win or lose, we expect you to come back. We'd like to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, stay with us. We got a big show ahead. Today's Verdict keeps going right after this.
This year, New York City began using ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local offices, such as mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Ranked choice voting means that voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference, instead of casting a vote for just one. You can still vote for just one candidate if you prefer. So, how will your ballot look? Your ballot will look the same as always, except now there will be a checkbox with ranking numbers depending on how many candidates there are in a race. So how does it work? If your first choice gets over 50% of votes, they automatically win the race. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of votes on the first round, then the candidate with the least amount of votes gets eliminated, and the votes get recounted again in a second round of counting. Here's an example. Let's rank colors. I like blue the most, so I'm marking it 1. I like purple 2nd, green 3rd, and orange 4th. Okay, my votes are in. Now other votes are counted and the results are as follows. Blue earned 36%, purple earned 27%, green earned 19%, and orange earned 18%. As you can see, none of these colors earned more than 50% of the votes. So the one with the smallest amount of votes gets eliminated. Voters who chose orange as their first choice now have their votes distributed to their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives 50% of the votes and becomes the official winner of the race. That's it. That's ranked choice voting. Ready? Let's vote.
All right, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch, as we continue our series on civil court and candidacy. We have with us today, John Rodriguez. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Listen, it's a long process. I know it is. We were talking a little bit about it off air. Let's let the viewers know a little bit about you. Let's tell them a little bit about John Rodriguez, where you've been, how'd you get to this point, sitting across from me virtually this way. Let's introduce yourself a little, if you could.
Okay, in a nutshell, I'm a Bronxite with deep and long roots in the Bronx. My father was born in the old Lincoln Hospital back in 1932, so we go back quite some time. I'm a graduate of the Bronx High School of Science. I went to Binghamton University, went to New England School of Law in Boston, and that's my basic educational background. I am married 37 years, and it's going into my 38th year. I have two grown daughters, one of whom is an attorney. One is a assistant practitioner. I have 5 grandchildren. I'm a family guy. I have a zest for life and family, and want everyone to share and enjoy the fruits of our labor. And government and the courts all play a part in all of that. So that's my basic background in terms of who I am.
Now, in terms of your, by the way, just not to, and we're big fans of Bronx Science here. My brother went to Bronx Science. My father went to Bronx Science. So that alone, that puts a big smile on my. I was a Queens kid, so I stayed local. But Bronx High School Science, big props. In terms of your legal career, you have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. Everything from what I can see here, you got a little Bronx DA, a little legal aid, you got a lot going on. And I think that's important, legal aid, because you know it from the perspective of those who don't have in the Bronx. Bronx DA, because you're also prosecuting. Do you feel that both those two things together are going to really help you if you are elected?
One of the beauties of having had that experience as first a legal aid attorney for 5 years, and as you said, helping those who are undervalued and underrepresented, and what we call indigent, or people who can't really afford counsel. The fact that you could go in there and be the best counsel you can be, and we had a good group of people, and they worked very hard to ensure that we were trained properly. I got great training at Legal Aid Society, and to help people. And that was very important to me, because I understood how people felt when they walked into a courtroom and were scared because, maybe they got involved in some things they didn't really understand. Who knows what the reasons are? But this country, we all have the right to be fully represented, zealously, and see fairness and justice, whatever happens. So I wanted to be part of that, and that was very good for me. So that gave me one perspective, right? Then I said, reached the point where I couldn't go any further in Legal Aid Society, and I wanted to do another step. And I had people tell me, "You're so zealous with legal aid, you can never be a prosecutor." I said, "Well, I disagree, because I champion the rights of victims. People are victims. We have to ensure that there's respect for the law. We have to ensure that the rights of the state, are protected, and our citizenry is protected. At the same time, I only wanted to try certain cases, and I represented the state by prosecuting career criminals, violent criminals, people who had no respect for the law, no respect for the rights of others. And I went into that job, and what it did for me is it gave me a sense of balance, not just because I saw the prosecutor side and the legal aid side, but I had the ability to be a prosecutor in the courtroom and see how there's a different flow of the way you're treated as a prosecutor as opposed to a criminal attorney. And you began to see some disparities in some courtrooms. So and I guess what was really important for me is that a judge should not exhibit those disparities. You have a right to feel the way you feel. You know, if you're quote unquote pro prosecutor or quote unquote pro defendant, you have. But when it comes to the judge should call the balls and call the strikes. When it's a ball, it's a ball. It's a strike, it's a strike. Do not get your favoritism. Don't get a rooting interest in the game, if you will.
Listen, you know, if you're elected, you could be placed criminal. Obviously, you have the background there, no question about it, the criminal courts, but you could be placed in the civil side where I am. Are you ready for that? If you're called, listen, you want to use a baseball analogy, you know, you're called into the game, you're the relief pitcher, you're called in, they hit the arm, you go right in, you got to go right in. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, let me tell you something else, which you haven't talked about yet. I was a civil defense attorney for the New York City Transit Authority. I handled major cases for them, right? I was a senior trial assistant. One of my cases, in fact, was got a half a page write-up in the New York Law Journal. And I can say that experience, you know, preventing fraud against the city, preventing plaintiffs from overreaching, you know, people get injured, you know, it's part of life, you know, in a big city like this, it's going to happen. And they should, if they're hurt, they should be compensated, but not more than they should be. And they should get fairness wherever you go. So I actually have 7 years of civil experience. I stopped doing criminal for 7 years, and I did civil, and I went in law firms and did some defense, and then I ultimately became a plaintiff's attorney.
Did you like the civil side as opposed to the criminal side? I mean, you've really done it all in some respects. I'm not, you know, what was listen, you could be passionate for both, but there's always a little bit of, wow, I really enjoyed this a little bit more than this at certain times. What are your thoughts? So
I learned this in criminal, went to civil, and this also helped me. So I'm a very passionate trial attorney. Some of us are very passionate in a way, and others of us are very measured. And, you know, it's good to have balance even in how you proceed in a case. It was very easy. He's not guilty. This is outrageous, you know, or look what he's done to the community. This, you know, we're easy to get outraged. You get to the civil side, outrage doesn't always play that well. You have to be very careful how you address and approach the jurors. So you have to learn to balance the incidents. You're not always as outraged or angry, and you know, you want to gauge things a little better. People are a little different. People don't want to give, sometimes they want to give away money. The city's money, this is my money, or you know, why should insurance company, my raises my insurance. So you have to be delicate about how you approach things. And so because, again, I had great experience. I'm a trial attorney. This is what I do. I wasn't passionate about the civil as much as I am the criminal, but I'm ready. Listen, I know where the issues are in a trial because it's a courtroom. It's still a courtroom. You learn the law. You learn the procedure. You learn what you have to learn to do the job. But you still have to have the temperament of a judge. I don't care what courtroom you go into. Trial attorney is a trial attorney is a trial attorney. You're a trial attorney. If you're a trial attorney, you know you go in a courtroom, you're going to do whatever you have to do. Who is this judge? What is this judge, his demeanor? What is he like? Who are these people like? You have to gauge, and that comes from knowledge, experience, and preparation. That's the keys to this. Preparation, knowledge, and applying all those things.
You know, John, campaigning is not easy. I've never done it, but I, from what I'm told from all the candidates who've been on for all the different races, whether it's races for mayor or races for controller, I've interviewed all of them. And it's not easy, but have you enjoyed the process of getting out to the community and meeting people? Tell me a little bit about maybe the good of it. I'm not quite sure.
I'm going to tell you the first good thing for me, I lost 20 pounds running around. So I'm grateful for that. So we'll start with that. But let me tell you what, see, you can know the law, you can have dealt with people in the courtroom, but you don't know what you're dealing with until you hit the streets. Yeah. hit the streets. You got to know the people. You got to knock on the doors. How are you doing? This is what I am. People talk to you. They tell you what they feel. You get a sense of how they feel. And a lot of the sense I'm getting is people don't feel that they're being respected or even considered. And I liken the criminal court, the court, like for example, criminal court, as the dam. There are things, the river comes from upstream. A lot of people, they go all different problems. And by the time they get to us, especially if they're in serious matters, they're damaged goods, so to speak. Not everybody is born, a demon seed. Life affects us as we go. So I just look at what we do as attorneys. If I become a judge, is try to deal with where the person who comes before me is, right? And I'm speaking about criminal now.
Yeah.
So it's important when you listen to these folks. I can't talk policy with them. I can't explain to them, how I would do things, because that's not my job. My job is very different, and I'm constrained by, responsibility, ethics, and different rules. But you hear so much. And so I just hope that the other people upstream, the city council people, the mayor, the controller, everyone else is aware of the issues, so that by the time people come before me, they're in less of a problem. And maybe we can just play my role in the whole thing. Because
and just so the viewers know, you have some endorsements as well. I mean, it's not just you alone. You have a whole group behind you, the Bronx Democratic Club, that type of thing. So you could let the viewers know a little bit about who seems to be behind you.
Well, I have Ruben Diaz Jr. I have Jamal Bailey. I have Jamal Bowman. I have Eric Dinowitz. I have Jeffrey Dinowitz.
A litany of individuals.
Vanessa Gibson. I have 12 endorsements.
Yes, a litany who thinks that you are extremely qualified. It is a contested election, 2 seats available, 5 people running. Are you ready for it? It's getting close.
I am ready. Before I came in this morning, I was out shaking hands, giving literature out.
And it's a hot day wearing a suit and tie.
And after I leave you, I'm going to go back out and do the same thing.
We're going to let you get out there because I know you're pretty busy. You don't have much time left. Win or lose, we hope for you to come back because we'd love to see you again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Win or lose, I'll be back.
All right.
Take
All right,
care.
John Rodriguez. Listen, everybody else, stay with us. We have so much more. Today's Verdict coming right back, right after this. All right, well, that's all we have for tonight's show. I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for watching. And of course, if you have an issue or topic you'd like to see on a future Today's Verdict with David Lesch, just email me at davidlesch@bronxnet.org. Until the next time, know the issues, reach a verdict. See you in 2 weeks.